What's up, guys? It's Nick. Welcome back to Freedom Algo. Today I'm going to go through all the trade setups for the day, this high win rate strategy. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to take some of these high win rate strategies in real time, how to look for them, how to spot them. And I can tell you that all of these trades would have been easy wins today. There was so many trades that set up in a very consistent way. Now, I will say this, it was a really big uptrend today, but you don't get as many entries as you would think in this if you want to have this high win rate strategy. Now, there were certain entries that were more questionable and all that sort of stuff, but in this video, I'm just going to go through the high win rate, safer strategies, how you could have traded this to make a lot of money trading the ES on the 2000 tick chart. So let's just get into it. I'm going to turn off my camera here just so that it's a little bit easier to see the chart as I scroll in. So what you're going to see here is that we had this big uptrend, two-tiered channel. Now there's little channels within there. So I'm going to go through kind of what this looks like. And so let me zoom in. We'll talk about it here. All right, so let's go down first over here. We'll zoom in a little bit just so that you can see it on your side. So we had the overnight open here. It trended down. You had a close outside, a break, and a new low. And then we started these up channels. Now, this would have been in the middle of the night, so none of this would have been what I traded. But I still mark these off to see if the price action plays out. So in the beginning of the day when I came in, this right here is at 552. So this is the first trade of the day for me. Over here, there was no trades. I think I didn't get here until a little after 5:30. So I think it was right before this trade setup came in. I think when I came in, we were on this candle or maybe this red candle, one or the other. And so anyway, as we came in, we had this uptrend. It hadn't had a new high yet. So we got a break there, and you got a first entry, second entry. Now that would have been in the middle of the night. That ended up not making it to the new high, but then it was basically just sideways action. You know, it's not really swings. So in this action here, I wasn't really looking for anything in particular yet until we came down here. So the way I saw this was like this. If in real time, when I came in, I looked at this as kind of like a tight range. I sort of drew it like this. I drew it something like that in real time. And so I had this range here on my chart, something about just like that. I might have even actually had it drawn a little higher. I think I had it drawn like this, something like that. And I was thinking, all right, so we had this range, and to me, this looks like a failed breakout. So the way I saw this trade was like this. We had an uptrend. We didn't have a close, or we didn't have a new high yet, so I'm expecting a new high. And we had this bearish candle that then immediately gave us rejection reversal right above the 21 EMA. And at this point, I had drawn a trend line off of these swings down here. I think in real time, the way I had this drawn was something more like possible trend channel, something like this. So it actually, to me, looked like it could be confirming the trend channel. And so it was a nice setup for me. The other thing to like about this is you had this high here. So if you count from this high, because you had a first swing, second swing, and this is kind of a new high versus that one. So you could kind of look at this as a pullback first entry, pullback second entry long on a failed breakout. So this was a good trade for me. The only reason I marked it green is just because the way you don't have a ton of space to the channel, and it's possible that the channel was like this and that you could end up hitting this and rejecting. So that's the only reason I marked it green. Is like you don't really know for this range if it's going to be higher or lower. So anyway, but good setup overall. Then it came up, you had this uptrend working, you got a break, a new high, and then you had a second swing. So a lot of times when you get your close outside like this, you get a first high and then a second leg to a new high. So you get that one with this big reversal. And at the time, it was kind of lining up pretty well with the channel tops. So that was a really safe short right there to take and ride it all the way back to the EMA. It looks like a failed breakout of one side and then a failed breakout of another side if you were to extend this. It's kind of like a double failed breakout of this area. And you're kind of just expecting it to come back to that close. Maybe the EMA, they're lining up pretty well. So nice trade there. You had this downtrend working now from that. And so you get a close outside. This is kind of sideways action here, but The reason I liked this trade here is I saw this as a trap, and I did take this one in real time as well. So what happened here was came down, close outside, and what you get here is this new high, and you've got a first entry long, and then this pulls back and then closes above to give you a second entry long on a higher low after this close. And so this to me was just a trap. It was just people that were thinking that we're going to get a new low on the short, and they all piled in down here and they all got stopped out. And so that was for me just going to be a quick little trap. So you just ride that up on the scalp, take the profit, and then get out. And that's what that trade was for me. I didn't even try to get a runner on that. I didn't expect it to really go that high. I expected some volatility there. It was a little sideways. So anyway, but I still think that's a safe trade. And then you finally get your swing down to a new low. Now, unfortunately, on this swing down to the new low, you kind of could see this almost as a first leg higher, second leg higher, almost like a wider second entry. Problem is you don't get a good signal bar. This bar is just a little bit too bearish. If this one closed a little higher, like even just up here, even with it being red, if it closed a little higher, I probably would have taken it. And at the time, the way that the channel was fitting, it looked almost like a close outside. So there's some reasons to like it, but I didn't take it. All right, so then you get a new channel working up. And at this point, you have some space for a range. Now, I think at the time I had it drawn a little lower, but still, you came up. You get a close outside, but you don't get a new high there. So I just didn't think that it was safe to take the short. Even though it closes back inside the range, I just didn't like it. So I stayed out of that trade because I was expecting maybe a new high and then you get the failed breakout. But you just don't really get a good setup there, unfortunately, with the way that this channel worked. So I stayed out of that. Then you come down. And at this point, you've got a wider channel working, which is this channel right here that I have shaded. And then I have this other shaded channel because what ended up happening was we had this up channel working. We still had this possible range, but at this point it was getting bullish and you weren't getting any lower lows. You're just getting higher lows. So you had to consider that the channel was going to win, which was right here, this line right here. So the channel ends up working up all the way to here on this bearish candle where it closes. There's really nothing here. This is all sideways action, too tight for really me to take any trades there. It's kind of like a fight between the range and the up channel. And finally, the up channel starts to win, but then it breaks below the range real quick, and it gives you this really bullish candle. I mean, that's a 22 tick candle, way more bullish than what we were seeing throughout a lot of the day here. And so after that candle, though, you get this possible short entry. And I only marked this green because if this candle finished red a little lower, I would have liked this as I would have probably marked this red. Even though you're better off to wait for the higher or the lower high here, the way I saw this was a break out of this channel right here, this channel that we're talking about right here. It's a break below that, and then a move to a new high, and then a reversal. And sometimes you want a lower high here, which you don't get. But the reason this is green is because of just how this was almost a doji. It ended up being sort of a bearish close, but if this finished a little lower and there wasn't this stem on the bottom, I would have just marked this probably red and just said, ride that back to the EMA. You're going to get a scalp out of it most likely. And it's a 10 tick candle, not a huge risk. All right, so then it comes down, and at this point, that channel is broken, but you've got to start to consider, do we have some sort of a spike and then a channel that's a little bit flatter? And so that's what I ended up drawing off of this low over here. And these sort of moved a tiny bit on me. That kind of happens sometimes during the trading day. It's annoying, but they sort of moved on me a tiny bit. So it looks like it was more like a very slight difference, but something like that. So anyway, you had this wider channel. Now you come down and you don't get you get a first entry here, but then it just goes and shoots all the way up. So you don't really get a second entry long there. You just get a high pullback, kind of a first entry, sort of a hidden there, but that's a little advanced. There's kind of a pullback to this high, and then it pulls back and gives you sort of a hidden second entry, but it's just too risky for me there because you don't have this channel really confirmed that well yet. And then from over here, you kind of come down right to the edge of the channel, and you get this kind of second entry because it's a high, first entry, pullback, second entry that's also a higher low. So I like that one. That was a nice safe trade right there. pretty bullish. It's a little bit of a doji kind of in some way, but it's more of a bullish close. Not a ton of stem on the top there. It sort of looks like the reverse of this candle. It's probably about the same size. It's 9 ticks instead of 10. But I like that one because here what I'm thinking is, since we have this wider channel that's probably in play, we're probably going higher. And we had this measured move on the chart. Forgot to mention this. Earlier in the day, I measured this move out from here, from this low to this high, and then from this low to up here as a first target. And that trade actually takes you right to the measured move. So if you stayed in this and let it play out, you would have went all the way up to that measured move pretty much perfectly. Went one tick above, and then it reverses. And then after that reversal, unfortunately, it gets pretty sideways here. It starts to look like a pretty strong trend because of all these dojis and tails on the bottom and stuff. But you don't really get that many good signal bars. So there's some possibilities here, but just nothing that I really liked. So I stayed out of those, just tried to keep it safe. And we started to come up. Now at this point here, when we break out of the top side of this channel, that's where I'm thinking, okay, it could be an overshoot or there could be a wider channel in play. So I drew the wider channel from this low, and I kind of, at first I connected it through, so you can see here, I connected it through this low on this candle, and it touches there, and then I drew it off of this high over here, and that gave me a really nice big channel to work with. And I had to consider that we were actually in a wider channel there. And so then it comes up, and we start going a little bit sideways here. Now, the reason I marked this one as a green and a possible short, even though it's a pretty bullish uptrend, as a possibility, is that when you broke out of this channel here, you made a new high, and you were still thinking it could be an overshoot, and you end up getting a first entry, second entry long. It still goes sideways, and it breaks up one more time. You're pretty far from the EMA, and at the time, the way I had the channel drawn, I had it drawn a little bit higher. And so to me, it actually looked like we had a break of the bigger channel. I had this bigger channel drawn a little higher. So it actually looked like a close outside had happened. And we had two legs up. So we had a new high and then a second leg. And basically the other thing about this green, the reason I marked this as possible high here, is that you have these double bottom here. So you could kind of trigger this as a first entry, second entry short. It was a nice, easy, quick scalp. Take like 4 or 5 ticks on that, and then you're good. And so I liked that one, but you know, you don't want to be picking tops here, and that's why it's a green. So it's a possibility. Now we had a flatter channel up here working, and it's all within this bigger channel. And so from this flatter channel, what I saw here was we came up to the all-time high at 58.30, and immediately rejected, but we got this bullish candle. So I like this one because it's pretty low risk. It's a 6-tick candle. So you can just enter, you know, basically 1 tick above this and just assume that a lot of these people who are trying to short the all-time high are probably going to get their stops run. And that's exactly what it did. It ran their stops all the way up. So that was it's a green trade because it's really just trading this as a bullish candle in an uptrend. At this point, you got to assume we're probably going through that all-time high, but it's risky. So that's why it's green. All right, so then this comes all the way up, and we come to the top of the channel here. This purple line is our new all-time high now. You don't really get a lot of entries up here, unfortunately, but then you do get this downtrend working. And from this downtrend that comes through, it breaks through the bottom of this flatter channel, so you're assuming, okay, we might make a new high after that. Now you end up getting an attempt higher here. You could say that this is a second entry, pullback, first entry, pullback, second entry, but there's no signal. So what I looked at here was all of this is one leg. So one leg up, pullback, and this would be this actual second leg. I marked this as a green trade because it's right off the channel, but you could end up coming lower here. You've just so far extended. So this was a nice, easy scalp. I took this one in real time, but I just took 4 ticks out of this. I didn't try to get anything crazy. You don't have a ton of space that it even goes. I think from the top of this candle here, it only goes 5 ticks. So you don't get a ton of space. And I was thinking it might reject at that EMA. So I just took like 4 ticks on that and then got out. But then what you get here is the break of this channel, and you get move to a new low, second leg to a new low, and this is a nice bullish candle right below the channel. So at this point, I'm assuming, all right, we're probably coming back to the EMA. So that's the safer trade for me because it's the 2 swings to a new low after the break of the downtrend. So I like that one. And now you actually broke out of the big channel. So if this big channel was confirmed through there, this is where you broke it. And so now what I would be looking at if I was still trading is eventually trying to make a new high. But after an all-time high type day, you might not get it. And you got to consider really in real time that there was sort of a down channel here. You get a break. Yeah, so I didn't have this drawn because it's a little later in the session, but I would have actually had a bigger channel drawn here as well, just as a possibility, which you get a close outside here, and then it comes up and it comes down to a new low. So now you got your new low on this down channel. So it's possible that we could end up, this is all played out over here. So it's possible that we could just consolidate and have a big range here. But I would be expecting it to probably come up and test the all-time high again. It probably will, but it's hard to say because that's a pretty extended move on a day like today. And so, you can't always get that. You're not always going to get that. There's a possible range forming here. You could start to like consider that there's a possible wider sort of range that I would be just looking at. This is not confirmed because it's been a trend type day, but you might want to draw a range that looks something like this. You got that low, you got that low, you're coming down to it again. If this holds here, then maybe there's a range that's going to work and we consolidate within the range between the high and somewhere down here. But this still looks bearish. You still do have to consider that this is now starting to give us some pretty bearish signs, even though that is the correction that got us to the new low. This might still break and give us another new low. And so you could end up getting a wider downtrend after a move like this, and so you have to consider stuff like this as possibly forming. None of it's confirmed yet because you only, like this is only one touch, two touch, so maybe it confirms, but you could end up having a downtrend. So you have to consider this sort of stuff as the price action's unfolding. You don't know if you have a wider channel yet until it comes up and rejects somewhere in this zone. And this range could end up being the win out here, and it looks like it already is. Like I just drew that, and you can see that it's actually giving us pretty nice potential there, which is now giving us a 1, 2, 3 possible triple test on a higher low. So there actually might be a decent long entry here, but it's still kind of bearish there. EMA is pointing down. It's a little risky. You don't really have a range confirmed here yet. This could, again, be a wider downtrend. So you don't really know for sure what this is going to do. What I would like here is if this gave us kind of like a matching low, and then it reversed and gave us a bullish close. But we can see if it plays out to anything. And I'll put my camera back on because I'm not going to be in the way there. So it's hard to really know for sure if this thing is going to give us anything here, but it looks pretty bearish to me. It doesn't look like it's going to give us rejection. When you see a range low, you want it to give you a rejection where it just immediately gives you a kind of a nice pin straight back upside. But I don't know if we're going to get that. This was a pretty aggressive move right there. Again, it could be from this wider downside here. It's also possible that there's some sort of flatter down channel forming. That all kind of fits pretty similarly though to that bigger channel I was drawing. It's pretty close to that same thing. So really hard to consider what it's going to do here. I'm done anyway, and I'm staying out of it because you got to be careful on a day like today, because what will happen is we've got some news coming up later, and basically there's an FOMC meeting. There's some other news that was coming out at 10, so that could be part of what happened here with some of this movement. I don't know. But there is a FOMC minutes meeting, and that's going to move the market quite a bit in about an hour. So I would stay out of it and be careful. Yeah, there's a nice little bullish candle, but again, that's pretty small, and you don't have a new low on this if it is going to play out. Even though it might be just a new low from this already played out, you might still get one. I'd be careful here. It could end up just going sideways. We can watch it here and see. Like, let's say you entered, I don't know, let's just call it one tick above that. Even just to get 4 ticks, you're going to have to get to there. To get like about 6 ticks, which is what I usually go for, you need to get about up here. You really need about something like that to play out. It's hard to know for sure if this is really going to get there. Yeah, let's see. take out the, there we go. Yeah, I think I do that right. Yeah, 7.5. Yeah, so it might play out. You know, it's a possibility. It's a possibility. We could see if it plays out, then we'll just mark this green as a possibility. And again, like I said, like it's a possibility because you could call this a high or low off of the range bottom. Triple test, first test, second test, third test. This could be a triple test long. But again, it's a little bit sketch because you don't know for sure that this is really a range that's going to work out. And so sometimes those triple tests like that could end up failing on you. Now the previous all-time high was 58.30, and this is below it. Yeah, so that qualifies here as a triple test. I'm gonna mark it green because of all the reasons I said. You know, like there's a possibility that that trend ends up playing out. You don't know, because even though this could have been just the correction on that, you don't always know that for sure. Because there could be a wider channel that's now in play. It's a lot of movement. And in this case, you might have gotten filled on 6 ticks there. You definitely would have got filled on 4 if you were going for 4. And by the way, I should have mentioned this. The ATR is only just above 2 here. So when it's not even close to 3, a lot of times I'll go for 4 ticks because the volatility isn't high enough on some of these bars. And again, this is a pretty low risk bar. This is a 5-tick bar. So, you know, realistically, like going for 4 ticks would have totally been feasible there, or even 5 ticks you would have got. Let's leave this. I'm going to leave this at the 1.75 points target because sometimes when it gets you to the 6 ticks, you get filled and sometimes you don't. So if you want it to go through it, so you really want it to move 1.75 points from your entry for it to confirm that you really get filled on that limit order. And again, this is if you entered 1 tick above that. So I should have been paying more attention on how this broke. If it came lower and only came up and it hasn't come back, I don't know. But you probably would have gotten out there. You would have got your fill most likely. And I'm just going to stay on for just a second just to see if 6 ticks would have played out. But again, the ATR is low enough. Towards the end of the day here, I should have mentioned this. Towards the end of the day, I set it on this candle. I did only take 4 ticks on this one because the volatility on the ATR just got too low for me. The candles were all really small. So I was going for 4 ticks later on in the day. I was going for 6 ticks on my scalp earlier as the ATR was higher. As it got smaller, I switched to 4 ticks. And that's just part of my strategy for keeping the win rate really high. And that's just how I play it. But anyway, yeah, so 4 ticks would have played out, 6 ticks, and this is, again, why the ATR is important. You'd be sweating a little bit here if you were in this trade. It might still play out. You got room to the EMA. It might still play out. But, yeah, it's going too slow for me to kind of sit around. And I don't want this video to take a really long time because that's what happened, I think it was yesterday or the day before, where I was trading and the video just ended up going for too long because I was trying to let something play out, but the volatility and the volume got low, and so it was just counting down super slow, kind of like how it is now. But it's almost there, so I'm just gonna let it sit for just a second. But yeah, this is why 4 ticks can be really good at times like this. You would have already been out of your trade so fast. 6 ticks, you would have been sitting here. Yeah, see? So 4 ticks would have done it because 4 ticks would have triggered, even if you entered 1 tick above, right? Yeah, you would have got filled on that first candle right away because it ended up going up 6 ticks total. So 4 ticks, 5 ticks would have totally worked. 6 ticks still would have maybe you would have got triggered right there on that wick, but I don't know for sure. A lot of times when the volatility starts to go down and the volume goes down, it'll touch your order and not fill you, and that can be really frustrating. So that's why you got to watch this ATR here. That's 21 period ATR that I'm looking at. When the ATR is below like 2.5, then I usually am only going for 4 ticks. When it starts to get above 2.5, depending on what it looks like, there you go. You would have got the 6 ticks. It would have just taken some time. So that trade would have worked out totally safe. But I'm going to keep it green though, just because again, you don't know for sure if this is going to be confirmed. And when you have a triple test where it's that far away previously, you just don't know. You just really don't know. So anyway, really good trading day. I loved it today. Loved what I saw. You could have got some runners on some of these, so that was pretty cool too. But I'm going to wrap it up here, and I will see you soon.